Welcome to episode number 21. On today's show, we talk about the classics, why and how to answer a question with a question, and why age doesn't matter, so long as you stay hungry.
When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A car salesman.
Said no one ever.
Hi, I'm Patrick Hennessy.
And I'm Courtney Hennessy.
Welcome to the Be Less Typical in Car Sales podcast, a real-life account of the car business that breaks the perception of what it's like to be a car sales professional. During the show, we're going to take you into the lives and minds of those who have found success. So ignite your passion and get ready to learn effective hacks to streamline your success and boost your income.
So, is that your pitch?
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It wasn't too long ago that I opened my email inbox to find an email with the subject line, I am less typical. Within was a thank you note and link to jamesjohnsonsellscars.com.
If you listen to our show regularly, all the way to the end, just before the blooper, you know that we ask our listeners who are less typical or know someone who's less typical to reach out.
And you know what? I love when people do. Getting these emails never gets old. So thank you, James Johnson.
James has been in the car business since the 1980s. He climbed the ranks, served in many different positions within the business, including salesman, F&I manager, desk manager, sales manager, training manager, and general sales manager. He's sold Honda, Audi, BMW, Ford, Chrysler, GM, Volvo, Mercedes-Benz, and Toyota. He's done it all. And like most of us, he's left the business and come back. Most recently,
some friends convinced me to come back into the car business, and I went back to the Toyota store again. And that was February of 2013. And that's when I realized everything had changed. And I had to make a decision whether to stay or not. And I decided to stay.
We're happy you did. Decided to stay, that is. But let's go back to the beginning.
When James was a little boy, he remembers a fleeting thought that he wanted to be a lawyer.
I can remember once saying, I'd like to be an attorney. And my mom said, you don't want to be an attorney. They have to lie. They're liars. So that was kind of the end of that.
And after that?
I didn't give it much thought.
He didn't give his future much thought. He did, however, find his way into the Army for 11 years. He climbed the ranks and says he quit when?
Until it stopped being fun.
As we talked with James, it's apparent that he is a doer. He wants to be on the operational side of things, being challenged and given opportunity to grow. So it's no surprise that when he gets to the point in his military career where he's on the staff side of things and there's not much room for growth, that he's ready for a change.
After he retires from the Army, he gets a job in real estate for about a year. A job he got into because
I had picked sales because somebody had told me, you should be in sales. And my mom had a real estate office for about 48 years out in California.
He puts the two together, real estate and sales, and starts a career in real estate. However, he finds that he doesn't like it at all. So what's next?
Well, he has a client who recommends the car business.
And one of my real estate clients who had rentals was in the car business. He kept telling me, you'd love it. Your personality is good for it. Things happen fast. And he eventually talked me into coming into the store where he worked, which was a Honda, Porsche, Audi store.
So he goes to the dealership where his client worked. He fills out some paperwork, and before he knows it, he's hired. As he recalls, they gave him a little booth to sit in. And when he looked around...
And that was pretty much it. It was an old-timer store. I was 28, and these guys looked like they were 88.
This actually works in his favor because the guys on the floor weren't taking fresh ups or hunting for business. They were working their already established client base, tilling the soil, if you will.
This is a good situation to be in when you're trying to grow your customer base. However, James doesn't know how to sell cars. He relies on a little bit of training he had from real estate, but it doesn't really cut it in the car business. And it isn't too long before the manager tells him he needs to go to Mobile, Alabama to meet Jackie B. Cooper. James's response?
And I said, well, who's that? And he said, this is the guy that can teach you how to sell cars.
If Jackie can teach him how to sell cars, James figures he better meet him. So he goes to Mobile. Now, this is the first time James has ever been exposed to a professional speaker or trainer. He remembers.
And I was just soaking it in. It was just unbelievable. There were things you could say that would make certain things happen. And I was filling out that workbook like crazy. I still have it on my desk today.
The workbook is from 1987. It's almost as old as I am, but classics never really go out of style. Think about it. We still summon fashion inspiration from Jackie O. The quote, "Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country," given by JFK in his inaugural speech, is a common strategy most businesses and salespeople are implementing in today's marketplace. And we're still referencing and implementing many of the strategies laid out in the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. All classics born in the 1960s, all very relevant in today's world. Most sales training is no different.
And just like anything else, for training to work, you need to study it.
Repetition is important. You're gonna lose so much of this, and you need to get those tapes in the back of the room. So I ran back there and grabbed them, and I was listening to them driving back. I listened to them day and night. And my third month in the business, a month later, which was my third month, I was actually the salesman of the month.
I have a colleague I work with that recently made the decision that he was going to get serious about selling cars. Not only did he make the decision, but he did the more difficult part and started taking action. He put some skin in the game and bought training materials, audio that he listens to every day in the car. He bought a training book and a PDF workbook to go along with it. He tells me what he has heard every day and practices the script on me to get more comfortable with it. It's inspiring to experience, and he's already reaping the benefits.
Maybe we'll get him on the show sometime. Artie, if you're listening, just say when. Being a student brings you the knowledge and the confidence you need to succeed. James reflects.
And I learned that I could learn. I guess that was the most important thing that came out of that.
James has learned a lot over the years, so we asked him what his number one piece of advice would be for someone in car sales, or any type of sales for that matter.
He says you have to learn to communicate, and he reminds us that
real important to understand that whoever's asking questions is in control of the situation.
He goes on to say,
and 99% of the time, answering questions doesn't get you any closer to a sale.
He gives us an example. Let's say a customer asks if you have the vehicle they're looking at in the color black. Most of the time, a salesperson will say, "Yeah, I can get you a vehicle in black." However, James would say,
my response is going to be, "Oh, you're looking for a dark color?" And I'm shaking my head up and down. "So you want a dark color, right?" They start shaking their head and agree with me. Makes it a lot easier for me to deliver a dark blue or a dark gray car as opposed to a black.
One of the first and worst things to get pinned on is color, right? I mean, for whatever reason, we all know the color that they want is the one you don't have.
Mm-hmm.
The weird combination, you know?
This goes for other things too, not just the color. That's why understanding how to effectively communicate and uncover what the customer's needs and wants are is a very important part of the sales process.
Listening to what's really being said, and whenever possible, answering a question with a question.
This is an interesting concept, and as I'm listening to this, it's dawning on me that Patrick does this all the time to me. For example, I asked him a question about when he was going to have an episode of Be Less Typical ready for me to add music to. We call this mixing the episode. The conversation went something like this. "Hey Patrick, when do you think you might have the episode ready for me to mix?" His reply, "When do you need it by?" And this is just one of the many examples I've noticed recently. Little did I know that this was a strategy he was using to lead me towards what he was looking for, the answer to when I needed the episode ready.
Caught. Anyway, James gives us another example of this. If a customer asks for alloy wheels, he might say,
I might answer a question like that. "Were you looking for a car with alloy wheels? I want to know." And that it probably is going to be yes, because they did ask it. But I'm also at the same time getting them to answer questions that I know will be a yes. They form a habit subconsciously of answering yes to me if I ask the right questions throughout the entire sales presentation.
So you need to ask the right questions, and questions that render yes answers from your customer.
You can also then use all of the information the customer has provided you with during your yes conversation when you're closing. As James says, he sells on his feet and closes in his seat.
I'm keeping track of what they've agreed to, answering questions with questions whenever possible, asking questions that I can control the answer to or I expect an affirmative answer to, is setting them up for when they sit down with me. I have all the ammunition to help them make the right decision.
I completely agree.
James goes so far as to say that being able to communicate effectively is the most important skill you can have.
He shares with us an example from when he had first moved to Las Vegas. He'd just started at a Toyota dealership.
I had presented a Camry, a 1997 Camry, in such a way that the lady told me, wow, you are really an expert on these cars. But I didn't know anything about the car. But the way I was able to answer her questions and communicate, she perceived me as an expert.
Perception is reality. James goes on to tell us that the customer ended up being a repeat customer over time. She became a customer for life. And as Patrick puts it,
it's not always, I mean, I think we've all probably come across the people that are the true product knowledge gurus, right? But they can spend all day spewing knowledge, but if you're not really listening and communicating, you don't really know if you're saying something that the customer really cares about or not, and that's, I think that's what you're saying, is that if you can communicate back to them what they're looking to find out and control that conversation, then that's how people perceive you as the expert.
As we move through our conversation with James, you can tell he's a veteran, in more ways than one, obviously. But in terms of the car business, James has learned over time that one of the things he loves to do is train new salespeople.
His training philosophy starts with an understanding on why customers come to the dealership in the first place.
Get people to believe that if somebody comes on that lot and they had the entire planet Earth to be somewhere else, but they're here to fill some kind of a need. They have a problem. And if you keep that in mind and you care and you ask the right questions, they're going to tell you how to sell them.
Agreed. And he shares with us a story about a new guy who he worked with, a newbie who got stuck in the huddle. The new guy has picked up bad habits and bad car sales language and is using words and phrases like tire kicker or stroker when referring to customers. Language and terms he probably didn't even know existed before he got into the car business. James can tell that he's discouraged, and he can tell that the biggest problem is the newbie's mindset. So he approaches it like this. He explains.
But he understood. I explained to him, look at all the places in Las Vegas where a person could be. If you weren't looking to buy a car, would you come here? And he agreed he would not. And I explained that they were here to buy a car. They didn't know probably which one or how it was all going to work, but their needs weren't met. And that's okay. This is a learning experience. And here's what I said, and the light bulb went off for him. In order to sell what John Brown buys, you must first see through John Brown's eyes. And I use those kind of phrases all the time, and people hold on to them. I've heard people say, God, I heard you in the back of my mind saying this or saying that. But it's true. If you don't know exactly what's important to that person, you're either going to get lucky and take an order, or they're going to go away.
Furthermore,
just because a person comes and says, hey, I want to look at the Camrys, I'm interested in the Camry, doesn't mean that the Camry is the car best for them to buy. So it comes back to asking a lot of questions. What got you thinking about the Camry? What are you driving now? What do you like best about it? If you could have improved anything, what would it have been? Why'd you pick this story? If you get in there deep enough, you're going to find out how you can satisfy their needs.
Now remember, James is currently in the sales position. Technically, it's not his job to train salespeople. And Patrick makes a good point here.
I think it's a great point to show that you went through those ranks and came through your cycle of your career thus far, and now you're in a sales position, but you're still that mentor and teacher, it sounds like, and you still share that knowledge and information. And I think for those of us that have been around a little while, when you find that to be your passion, that's something you can do from any position within the dealership. It doesn't have to be a management position to be able to be that kind of a coach. And that's what really spurs a lot of growth in our industry. And that's been really what we're trying to attack.
James is not only a mentor and teacher, he's also a student of the business. He has a library filled with books and resources.
It's actually an office I had to rent because it takes up so much space. That's 30 years of books. I have studied psychology, marketing, sales, metaphysics. There's a spiritual side to this also. In one of my biographies for a group I belong to, I call myself an information junkie, and that's what I am. I'm an information junkie. I like high tech. I like social media. I like getting better. I like people. It's a big part of it. it all comes together. It's perfect for this business.
So, as we're discussing different books and resources, he mentions one that we share in common, a book that I first read many years ago, and that really has influenced my life and career.
There's a book called Customers for Life by Carl Sewell. He inherited a Cadillac store down in Dallas, Texas. Now he has a Lexus empire. And he talks about those little things you can do, the opportunities to make sure people never do business with anybody else ever. And I took that book to heart. There's a lot of things I do that I don't have to do, but I also capitalize on them.
Not only has he taken the message of this book to heart, which if you haven't read it, I highly recommend you do, he's also put the strategy into practice. He shares an example of how he leverages going above and beyond the call of duty as a marketing tool. Here he highlights an example of when a customer can't come to the dealership, so he does a home delivery.
And when I'm doing that, I'm going to be filming that. I have videos up there showing home delivery on Instagram. Now on Periscope, I'm doing it live. On Instagram, there's videos there. And I highlight the fact that I'm delivering a car to somebody's house, especially when it's in somebody else's market. One of our competitors, the name of the store is the name of the community. So I made a point that I had it all tagged up that while I'm driving there and I'm filming it, that people understand I'm out there in that part of town making a home delivery. And I'm going to get pictures, I'm going to get videos, and I'm going to post them. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, my YouTube channel, and now Periscope. I think Periscope's going to be huge.
Smart. He's creating customers for life with the service he's providing, and he's capitalizing on this effort by using it as marketing material via social. And I just want to point out that James is not a spring chicken. I broke a cardinal rule and asked his age. He obliged.
58.
So this just goes to show that if you want to continue learning and be at the forefront of technology, you can, regardless of your age. You just need to want to. This is inspiring to me.
James is taking some of the foundational sales training resources, books like Customers for Life and Jackie B. Cooper's seminar teachings, and he's combining them with social media strategies. He even says,
But Periscope is huge. I keep telling everybody about it, but they don't believe me. Same thing with Twitter.
I agree with him. I'm not sure why someone wouldn't listen, because this guy is onto something. He's less typical than most.
He is, and he actually considers himself more of a marketer than a car salesman when it all boils down to it.
The reason I do this is, first and foremost, I'm a marketer. I don't consider myself a car salesman. I consider myself a marketer of James Johnson.
A marketer of the product and service he provides.
He also notes, like many top-performing sales pros, that it's important to use your time wisely.
There's a lot of downtime in the car business, and it's a perfect opportunity to go out there and actually create a presence, to market oneself and to be branded and actually have people looking for you.
I couldn't agree more. Use your time wisely, create a schedule, and stick to it.
In closing, to those of you listening that are contemplating how or if you're going to take your business to the next level, James says,
everybody won't do it, thank God, because not everybody could do it. When you want to stand above the crowd has to stay below. But there are some people that will take the initiative. There are some people out there that will do the work necessary to promote themselves and become a perceived and hopefully actual professional. And what I find is people who will go the extra yard, those people really are the professionals. Those are the people I would want to buy a car from, or want someone in my family to buy a car from.
And lastly, as Patrick puts it, stay hungry.
I think that's the secret to the whole picture, is that there's this sense of never being satisfied, and the people that we've come across that are truly exceptional, it's not that, I don't want to put that in a negative tone, but it's about, they want to constantly learn and grow, and part of that is the interactions with people as well, because that's really the best resource, face-to-face learning about people. And when you put all that together, that's when you start really finding satisfaction in what you do. And I think that people get beat up because they stop growing, and then they start feeling that pressure and their disgust for the customers that are allegedly coming in just to waste your time. And it becomes
there's no such thing.
Exactly, right?
There's no such thing.
So,
unless they're a tourist.
Exactly. Yeah, well, yeah, maybe out there, that's for sure.
Sometimes we get tourists from Canada that want to see the American Cross. But that's okay. Or Germany.
A special thank you to James Johnson for being a guest on the show. For show notes, go to belesstypical.com/021. Be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode. You can find all previous episodes on iTunes, Stitcher, or our website.
Our theme song is by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. All episode editing and mixing is done by us, a couple of amateurs learning as we go.
2 items before we sign off. Number 1, please take a moment to share our show with your friends, family, and coworkers. Sharing is caring, and we appreciate your support. Number 2, if you or anyone you know are conducting car sales in a less typical way, please reach out to us. We want to hear your story, and there's a chance you could be featured on an upcoming show. Send me an email so we can connect. My email address is Courtney@belesstypical.com.
Behind the scenes.
Do we have enough room? The workbook is from 1987. It's almost as old as I am. But classics never really go out of style. Think about it. We still summon fashion inspiration from Jackie O. The quote, "Ask not what your country can do for you, what you can do." That's not the quote. Sorry, JFK.
What can your country do for you?